The concrete floor was cold enough to numb my knees, and I remember counting my own pulse to keep from screaming. 140, 150, still climbing. My name is Quell, and 3 hours earlier I had been someone's houseguest. Now I was someone's leverage. I should tell you how I got here, because none of it makes sense without the humans. I'm a correspondent for the Galactic Coalition, which is a polite way of saying I get paid to stand near explosions and write down what I see before I run. 3 months ago, my editor handed me an embedded assignment with a human tactical unit, Captain Renau's Voss and her 5-person squad, and told me, with all three of her eyes narrowed, to come back alive. I nearly didn't manage it twice. The first time was Krell Station, a mining outpost the Vraxians had taken along with 30 hostages. Vraxians, 4 arms apiece, no functioning conscience, a taste for turning captives into wall art. Voss's squad went in anyway, 6 against 40, and I went with them because that's the job. I watched Voss walk past an automated turret like it was a slow pedestrian and put 2 rounds through it without changing stride. I watched Marcus, her demolitions man, hum some ancient Earth tune while he read the wiring on a bomb the way other people read a menu. I watched their sniper, Yuki, drop 3 men from a ventilation duct while apparently still chewing. None of it looked like strategy. It looked like recklessness wearing a uniform. Then we reached the atrium, and Grath, the Vraxian commander, the one with a bounty worth a small moon, stood over 30 terrified hostages and told Voss she was outnumbered. She pulled a pin and threw the grenade at the prisoners. My hearts, all 3, stopped in sequence. The hostages screamed, and one of them, a woman with cropped dark hair and no visible fear response, caught the thing out of the air, looked at it, looked at Voss, and drove it back across the room with her foot like she'd trained for exactly this. It wasn't live. It was a flashbang, and it dropped every compound-eyed pirate in the atrium to their knees, while Voss's team moved through the strobing dark like they'd rehearsed it 100 times. The woman's name was Kira Vance, Earth Defense Force, retired, undercover as a mining engineer, apparently unretired as of that afternoon. 8 minutes and 30 Vraxian dead later, we were lifting off Krell Station with every hostage still breathing. I filed the footage. I thought that was the whole story. Then the pirates decided it wasn't over. Which brings me back to the concrete floor. 3 weeks after Krell Station, my apartment door came apart at 3 a.m., and 4 Vraxian hired mercenaries walked me out in restraint cuffs that shocked me every time I flinched wrong. 2 hours later, I was in an abandoned factory outside Targus Prime, kneeling in front of a Vraxian officer whose armor told the story of a lot of people who hadn't survived meeting him. "You cost us 30 soldiers and 3 ships," he said, and I could hear the servos grinding in his jaw. "Now you're going to help us find Captain Voss." I told him something anatomically impossible involving a waste processor. He hit me hard enough that I heard something in my chest change its shape. He left me alone for 6 hours after that, long enough for my imagination to do his work for him. I lay there cataloguing every injury I'd seen human medics treat on Krell Station and matching them, one at a time, to my own body. When he came back, he brought instruments I recognized from old war coverage I'd rather not have filed. "Last chance," he said. "Tell us where to find Voss and this stops." Here's the thing I understood, kneeling on that floor with my ribs singing. I had spent 3 months documenting a species that made no tactical sense on paper and somehow won anyway, and the reason was standing in my memory right now. Tors treating a bullet wound like a splinter, Jin hacking a battle network while sitting cross-legged in crossfire, Marcus apologizing to a bomb before he defused it. They weren't reckless. They were loyal, past the point where loyalty was supposed to make sense, and some of that had apparently rubbed off on me, because I looked up at an armored killer holding surgical tools and said, "Do your worst. I'm not telling you anything." He raised the instrument. The wall came in before he could use it. Not cracked, blown. The whole concrete face of the room burst inward in a wall of dust and light, and Voss walked through the hole she just made, holding a breaching charge and wearing the expression of someone who'd run out of patience an hour ago. Marcus came in behind her with enough explosives strapped to him to redecorate the building. Yuki had a rifle that somehow seemed to be aimed at every hostile in the room simultaneously. Tors already had a medkit open. Jin was talking to the building's own security system like it owed him money. And behind them, two pistols raised and grinning like she'd been hoping for exactly this, was Kira Vance, apparently still not retired. "We were in the area," Voss said, putting 3 rounds through the officer's gun arms before he could raise them. "Figured we'd drop in." "You've been tracking me?" I asked, while Tors ran gloved hands along my ribs and made a sound I didn't love. "Since Krell Station," Jin said, not looking up from his tablet. "Figured someone might come for our journalist. Your apartment's security was garbage, by the way. I fixed it. Didn't stop a breaching charge, but at least I got the alert." Marcus was already walking the walls, tapping, listening. "Whole place is rigged to blow," he announced, delighted. "They were going to bury the evidence under the building." He grinned. "Counter-rigged it. If they try, it launches a glitter charge through the vents instead. Non-lethal, devastating to clean up." I would have laughed if my ribs had allowed it. Kira's earpiece crackled. "Company," she said. "All of it. 200 incoming armor, air support. They're done being subtle. 200 against 7, one of whom could barely stand." Voss checked her weapon like the number meant nothing. "Guess we're doing it the fun way." What followed wasn't a battle so much as an architectural prank played at gunpoint. Jin rewrote their tactical feeds so entire squads walked into walls and opened fire on their own people. Marcus turned corridors into treadmills and foam traps until 20 armored soldiers were cocooned solid, shouting into comms nobody could reach through the padding. Yuki worked the high ground with tranquilizer rounds. "We're making a point, not starting a war," Voss had ordered before the first shot. And inside 30 minutes half, the Vraxian force was in retreat, tripping over each other to get clear of a building that had apparently decided to fight back on its own. I watched all of it from behind a support column, camera still running, ribs screaming every time I breathed too deep. This was the part I would replay most later, editing the footage alone in a quiet room, not the explosions. But the moment their commander's voice finally came crackling over the exterior speakers, offering terms, and Voss answered from the blown-open doorway like she was finishing a conversation rather than winning one. "You wanted a message," she said. "Here it is. Touch our people again, and next time Marcus brings the explosive he's actually excited about." Marcus waved from behind her, holding something that looked deeply unstable and extremely pleased with itself. The feed cut, their transports lifted and scattered, and for a long moment nobody in that ruined factory said anything at all, just the tick of cooling metal and my own 3 hearts finally slowing down. Coalition investigators arrived the next morning to take statements, and by the time I was cleared to leave Targus Prime, the official incident report had already been filed as a tactical rescue operation, minimal collateral damage. My own report ran longer, messier, and considerably more honest, and my editor read it twice before looking up with all 3 eyes doing different things. "You're requesting another embedded assignment," she said. It wasn't a question. I told her I needed 6 months of boring desk work first. I meant it, mostly. 6 months later, in an editing bay far from any factory or flashbang, I ran the raw Krell Station footage one final time before archiving it, Kira's boot connecting, the grenade sailing back across the frame, and in the corner of the shot, half a second before the flash washes everything white, Voss already grinning, like she'd known exactly what was coming and wanted it anyway. I filed the request for a second assignment the next morning, and this time I didn't hesitate signing it.